Is once a week the new Seven Wonders? The hilarious truth about sex and happy couples? Spoiler alert, it's not what you think. Introduction. Let's talk about the elephant, or lack thereof, in the bedroom. We've all been there, haven't we? That awkward dinner party conversation, where someone inevitably asks the dreaded question, "So how's everything going?" Cue the nervous smiles, the vague answers, and the internal monologue wondering if your relationship's going the way it's supposed to. Society often whispers, and sometimes shouts, about the importance of a sizzling sex life for a happy partnership. But what if your idea of a perfect evening involves conquering a new level on your favorite game rather than, well, the age-old question lingers. Does a truly content couple need regular physical intimacy, or can they thrive on shared laughter and a mutual appreciation for comfortable silence? Well, buckle up, buttercups, because science has bravely ventured, where many have only nervously chuckled. A new study published in the esteemed Journal of Family Psychology has dared to peek behind the bedroom curtains, metaphorically speaking, of course, to investigate this very question. No snippet ID available. Inspired by real-life stories of seemingly blissful couples who reported little to no sexual activity, like the intriguing case highlighted in a recent New York Times Magazine article. Researchers decided to delve deeper into the connection between sex and relationship satisfaction. It appears that the contrast between common assumptions and these anecdotal exceptions sparked a quest for data-driven answers. This research acknowledges that people are often bombarded with messages about the necessity of frequent sex in relationships, and when they encounter stories of happy, sexless couples, it naturally raises questions about the norm. By exploring this discrepancy, the study aims to provide a more nuanced understanding of what contributes to a fulfilling partnership. Furthermore, approaching this potentially sensitive topic with a touch of humor right from the start can make the findings more accessible and engaging for a wider audience. Lifestyle magazine readers often appreciate relatable and entertaining content, and a lighthearted tone can help break down complex information and make it more memorable. The gold standard. Once a week, and beaming, like you just found a tenner in an old coat. The study's most significant revelation? A whopping 86% of the couples surveyed reported high levels of relationship satisfaction and a regular pattern of sexual activity, clocking in at around once a week. No snippet-eyed available. Think of it as your weekly dose of relationship superglue. This majority group weren't just having regular rendezvous. They also reported strong feelings of commitment, were open and honest with each other, and experienced relatively few arguments. They seemed to have the whole harmonious relationship thing down, with a healthy sex life as part of the package. Study author Matt Johnson put it quite succinctly. "We know on average couples who have sex more often tend to report being happier in their relationships. At least up to having sex weekly, more frequent sex doesn't boost satisfaction." No snippet ID available. This finding suggests that perhaps quality trumps quantity when it comes to sexual activity and its impact on relationship happiness. It challenges the often implied notion that more sex automatically equates to greater satisfaction, potentially relieving pressure on couples who might feel they need to be intimate multiple times a week to maintain a happy connection. The fact that this large group exhibited high satisfaction alongside regular, around once a week, sex, strong commitment, emotional openness, and low conflict points to a significant positive correlation between these factors. It suggests that a fulfilling sexual relationship is often interwoven with other positive aspects of a partnership, emphasizing that it's not solely about the physical act, but also about the emotional connection and overall relationship dynamics. The rare unicorns. Happy but no thanks? Like finding a vegetarian at a BBQ. Now for the question that likely brought you here, do these mythical creatures known as happy sexless couples actually exist? The study, while initially not finding a distinct group through its primary analysis, did some impressive detective work. By manually sifting through the data, researchers unearthed a tiny fraction, about 2.3% of the couples, who reported having absolutely no sexual activity in the past 3 months, but still declared themselves highly satisfied with their relationships. No snippet-eyed available. That's rarer than finding a matching pair of socks in the laundry abyss. As Matt Johnson himself stated, happy sexless couples were not evident in our analysis, although we were able to manually scour the data and find some couples who fit that bill. It seems as though happy sexless relationships do exist, of course, but they are very rare. No snippet-eyed available. This rarity suggests that while it's indeed possible to maintain high relationship satisfaction without sexual intimacy, it's certainly not the typical experience for most couples. The fact that researchers had to actively search for these couples within the dataset highlights just how uncommon this pattern is within the broader population studied. It implies that the factors contributing to happiness in these sexless relationships might be quite unique and not reflective of the dynamics observed in the majority of couples. The not-so-joyful journey, low satisfaction, and even lower libido. A match made in, well, not heaven. On the other end of the spectrum, the study identified a group making up 3.6% of the sample who were, perhaps unsurprisingly, the mirror image of the weekly wonders. These couples reported both low levels of relationship satisfaction and infrequent sexual activity, engaging less than 2 or 3 times a month. No snippet ID available. It seems that when the spark dims in the bedroom, it often reflects a general lack of connection and happiness within the relationship as a whole. These couples also tended to experience more conflict, reported lower levels of commitment to their partners, and were less likely to share their personal thoughts and feelings openly. No snippet-eyed available. This finding reinforces the general understanding that a lack of both sexual intimacy and overall relationship satisfaction often go hand in hand for a significant portion of the population. It provides empirical support for the idea that these two aspects of a relationship are often intertwined. The puzzling middle ground, when one partner is doing the happy dance and the other is just tapping their foot impatiently. Things got particularly interesting when the researchers looked at the remaining 10% of couples who exhibited what they termed mismatched satisfaction. This group was divided into 2 roughly equal parts. One where the female partner was satisfied while the male partner was highly dissatisfied, and another where the roles were reversed, no snippet-eyed available. What was surprising was that both of these subgroups reported a moderate level of sexual activity, engaging more than 2 or 3 times a month, but less than once a week, no snippet ID available. As Matt Johnson noted, the most surprising finding dealt with the discrepant satisfaction couples. Rather, we found a moderate amount of sex for these couples, 2 to 3 times per month. The couples were still having sex on a regular basis. It is likely that factors outside a couple's sex life could be driving the disparities in satisfaction for those couples. An interesting topic for future research. No snippet ID available. This suggests that simply having sex, even at a reasonably regular frequency, doesn't guarantee happiness for both partners. It implies that individual needs, desires, and expectations within a relationship can differ considerably, and that other factors beyond the physical act itself play a crucial role in determining overall satisfaction. The researchers' initial expectation was perhaps to find more extreme differences in sexual frequency within these groups, such as women feeling pressured into more sex or men feeling deprived. The discovery of a moderate frequency instead points to a more complex interplay between sexual activity and individual satisfaction than initially hypothesized. This highlights the value of examining subgroups within a larger sample, as it can reveal nuances that might be missed by simply looking at overall averages. Furthermore, the researchers' suggestion that factors outside of sex are likely contributing to these satisfaction disparities opens up exciting avenues for future investigation. broadening our understanding of the various elements that contribute to a fulfilling partnership. More than just the horizontal hustle, the secret sauce of happy relationships. Spoiler, it involves talking. The study didn't just focus on the frequency of the deed, it also looked at other factors that might influence relationship satisfaction. Interestingly, demographic characteristics like age, how long the couple had been together, and whether they had young children didn't strongly predict which of the relationship pattern groups they belonged to, no snippet ID available. However, the dynamics within the relationship itself appeared to be much more significant. High levels of commitment, frequent and open communication, self-disclosure, and a low frequency of conflict were strongly linked to being in the highly satisfied and sexually active group, no snippet ID available. Conversely, couples who experienced more frequent conflict and were less emotionally open with each other were more likely to fall into the less satisfied or mismatched groups, no snippet ID available. This highlights that while sex is an important ingredient for many happy couples, it's certainly not the only one. Factors like the ability to communicate effectively, a strong sense of commitment to the relationship, and the capacity to navigate disagreements constructively form the bedrock of a happy partnership. Without this solid foundation, even the most enthusiastic efforts in the bedroom might not lead to lasting happiness. The lack of a strong connection between demographic factors and these relationship patterns suggests that the quality of the interaction and the dynamics between partners are more influential in determining satisfaction and sexual patterns than external circumstances, at least within the young heterosexual German couples studied. A few tiny asterisks, important caveats, because science likes to be precise, unlike your uncle at Thanksgiving. It's important to remember that this study, while insightful, does have some limitations. The researchers primarily focused on a sample of young adults, between 20 and 39 years old, in mixed-sex relationships living in Germany, no snippet ID available. Relationship norms and expectations can differ significantly depending on culture, age, and sexual orientation, no snippet ID available. For example, other studies have indicated that sexual frequency tends to naturally decline with age, and that happy sexless relationships might be more common among older adults or in cultures with different social norms around sexuality, such as in some Asian countries, no snippet ID available. As Matt Johnson pointed out, these were all mixed-sex male-female couples, so things might look different among same-sex couples, and the data were gathered from German couples. It's possible results may differ among those in North America or from other regions of the world. In particular, sexlessness has been reported to be quite common in some Asian countries. Could happy sexless couples be more common in Asia? No snippet ID available. He also noted, I do think further research with older samples would also be important. Perhaps older adult couples might report high satisfaction while not having regular sexual encounters. No snippet ID available. Therefore, while this study offers valuable insights, its findings might not be universally applicable to all types of couples or across all cultural contexts. It serves as a reminder that research provides a snapshot within a specific context, and further investigation is needed to understand the broader picture of intimacy and satisfaction in diverse relationships. Conclusion, the bottom line, and maybe a gentle nudge towards communication. So what's the takeaway from all this bedroom and beyond research? Well, for the vast majority of couples, regular sexual activity, around once a week it seems, is indeed a characteristic of a happy and fulfilling relationship. However, and this is crucial, it's not the only ingredient in the recipe for relationship bliss. While the existence of truly happy sexless couples offers a glimmer of hope for those who find themselves in that less common situation, the data suggests it's a rarity, Ultimately, the study underscores the importance of building a strong foundation of commitment, open communication, and the ability to navigate disagreements constructively. So, don't panic if your sex life doesn't look like something out of a romance novel. Focus on connecting with your partner on multiple levels, and maybe treat yourselves to that pizza night, with or without the extra spice. The Relationship Report Card, decoding the dynamics of desire and delight. COVID brain fog. Turns out, it might be a little more literal than we thought. Remember that hazy, slightly disconnected feeling many of us experienced during or after a bout with COVID-19? The one we affectionately, or perhaps not so affectionately, dubbed brain fog? Well, it turns out that this feeling might have a bit more to it than just general malaise. Emerging research suggests that even a mild case of the coronavirus can leave its mark on our brains, prompting scientists to take a closer look at the long-term implications. Our brains, those incredible, squishy supercomputers nestled inside our skulls, are constantly being studied by researchers trying to understand their complexities. For years, scientists have been diligently piecing together how our brains change as we age, affecting everything from our ability to remember where we put our keys to how quickly we can solve a crossword puzzle. But when COVID-19 swept across the globe, it became clear that this wasn't just another passing illness. Reports started surfacing of lingering symptoms affecting not just the body, but also the mind. This led researchers to wonder, could this virus be throwing a wrench in the natural processes of our brain, perhaps even influencing how we age? This line of inquiry was significantly boosted by intriguing findings coming out of the United Kingdom, which specifically examined the impact of COVID-19 on the human brain. One particularly noteworthy study, published in the prestigious journal Nature on March 7, 2022, involved a team of researchers in the UK who peered into the brains of individuals aged 51 to 81. This research provided valuable new information about how COVID-19 might be affecting our gray matter. What made this study so powerful was its reliance on a treasure trove of data called the UK Biobank. This database contains brain imaging information from over 45,000 people in the UK, stretching all the way back to 2014. This meant researchers had access to brain scans taken before the pandemic, offering a baseline to compare against data collected after individuals had experienced COVID-19. The research team meticulously compared people who had contracted COVID-19 with a control group who hadn't, ensuring the groups were as similar as possible in terms of age, sex, the date of their initial tests, where they lived, and even factoring in common risk factors like pre-existing health conditions and socioeconomic status. This careful approach allowed them to isolate the potential effects of the virus itself. What they discovered was quite striking. Noticeable differences in gray matter, the brain tissue packed with neurons responsible for processing information, between those who had been infected with COVID-19 and those who hadn't. Specifically, the thickness of the gray matter in regions known as the frontal and temporal lobes was reduced in the COVID-19 group. These changes were different from the typical alterations in gray matter that researchers usually observe in people who haven't had a COVID-19 infection. Now, it's normal for our gray matter to change a bit as we get older, like the gradual wearing down of well-used pathways. However, the changes seen in those who had COVID-19 were more pronounced than what would typically be expected with age alone. Perhaps even more surprisingly, when the researchers looked separately at individuals who had been hospitalized due to severe COVID-19 and those who had experienced milder cases that didn't require hospital stays, the results were consistent. That's right. Even people who had what seemed like a relatively light bout of COVID-19 showed a reduction in brain volume. This suggests that the virus's impact on the brain isn't limited to only the most severe infections. The researchers didn't stop there. They also investigated changes in performance on cognitive tasks. What they found was that those who had contracted COVID-19 were slower at processing information compared to those who hadn't. Interestingly, This slower processing speed was linked to the volume of a region in the brain called the cerebellum, indicating a potential connection between the amount of brain tissue in this area and cognitive performance after a COVID-19 infection. The strength of this study lies in its large size and the fact that the same individuals were scanned both before and after their illness, coupled with the careful comparison to a similar uninfected group. This robust methodology provides a higher degree of confidence in the findings. So, what do these changes in brain volume actually mean for us? Early in the pandemic, one of the most commonly reported symptoms was the loss of the sense of taste and smell. It's quite remarkable that the very brain regions the UK researchers found to be affected by COVID-19, the frontal and temporal lobes, are closely connected to the olfactory bulb. Think of the olfactory bulb as the brain's smell processing center, the relay station that takes signals about odors from our nose and sends them to other parts of the brain. The olfactory bulb has direct connections to areas within the temporal lobe. Scientists often discuss the temporal lobe in the context of aging and conditions like Alzheimer's disease because it houses the hippocampus, a brain structure believed to be crucial for memory and cognitive functions as we age. The sense of smell itself is also a topic of interest in Alzheimer's research, with some evidence suggesting that individuals at higher risk for the disease may experience a diminished sense of smell. While it's still too early to draw any firm conclusions about the long-term effects of COVID-19 on our ability to smell, the fact that the virus seems to target brain regions also implicated in memory and Alzheimer's is certainly something that warrants further investigation. It raises the possibility that COVID-19 might somehow influence the aging trajectory of the brain, particularly in areas vital for memory. Furthermore, the study highlighted the potential role of the cerebellum, an area of the brain that's not just about keeping us balanced when we try to carry too many groceries. It's also involved in a range of cognitive and motor functions. Intriguingly, the cerebellum is also known to be affected by the aging process, and there's growing evidence suggesting its involvement in Alzheimer's disease as well. The finding that reduced volume in the cerebellum correlated with slower information processing in COVID-19 patients suggests that the virus's impact might extend beyond the areas primarily associated with smell and memory, affecting cognitive speed through its influence on this crucial brain region. These new findings naturally lead to some important questions that researchers are now actively trying to answer. For instance, what do these observed brain changes following a COVID-19 infection mean for the way our brains will age over the long term? And perhaps even more reassuringly, does the brain have the ability to bounce back from this viral assault? Can it recover over time? And if so, to what extent? These are precisely the kinds of questions that are being tackled in ongoing research, including work in laboratories focused on understanding brain aging. Decades of research have already shown us that as we age, our brains process information differently, and our bodies might not move with the same youthful agility. We know that older adults often find it more challenging to process and manipulate new information, like trying to remember an ever-expanding grocery list. But they typically retain a strong grasp on factual knowledge and vocabulary. When it comes to learning new physical skills, older individuals can certainly still learn, but the process often takes a bit longer than it does for younger folks. Structurally, the brain tends to decrease in size in adults over the age of 65, a change that isn't limited to just one area, but can be seen across many different regions. There's also typically an increase in the cerebrospinal fluid that fills the spaces left by the slight loss of brain tissue. Additionally, the white matter, which acts as insulation for the long nerve fibers that carry electrical signals between brain cells, tends to become less intact as we age. While life expectancy has thankfully increased over the past several decades, the ultimate goal is not just to live longer, but to live healthier. Even in the best-case scenario where aging occurs without major disease or disability, the natural process still brings about changes in how we think and move. Understanding how all these pieces of the aging puzzle fit together is crucial for helping us improve the quality of life and maintain functionality as we get older. And now, with the added complexity of COVID-19, it's even more important to understand the degree to which the brain might recover after this illness. In conclusion, this intriguing study from the UK provides compelling evidence that even a seemingly mild brush with COVID-19 can lead to subtle but measurable changes in brain structure, specifically a reduction in gray matter in key areas and a correlation with slower information processing. While it's too early to definitively say what the long-term consequences of these changes might be, the fact that they affect regions involved in smell, memory, and cognitive speed, and overlap with areas implicated in aging and neurodegenerative conditions, highlights the importance of continued research in this area. So, while you shouldn't panic and start blaming every misplaced sock on that time you had a sniffle and a fever, this research serves as a reminder that COVID-19's impact can extend beyond the initial symptoms. It gives us all a little more food for thought, and perhaps an extra nudge to keep our brains active and healthy. Where have all the little buggers gone? Spoiler: it's complicated and maybe a little our fault. Remember those summer evenings where you'd drive down a country road, and by the time you reached your destination, your windshield looked like it had hosted a tiny insect rave? Or how about the symphony of buzzing and chirping that used to fill the air in your garden? Well, if you've noticed things have gotten a bit quieter and your windshield a lot cleaner lately, you're not alone. It turns out our planet is facing a bit of a bug shortage, and it's a bigger deal than just fewer pesky flies to swat away. The usual suspects, and a few you might not suspect, the big drivers of insect decline agriculture. The top culprit, but not the only one. When scientists started pointing fingers at the main reasons for the insect decline, one big, green, and sometimes pesticide-covered culprit kept popping up: agriculture. It turns out that the way we've been doing farming on a massive scale is having a pretty significant impact on our insect pals. Think of it like this. Imagine your house being bulldozed to make way for a giant cornfield. Not a great situation for you, and definitely not for the insects who called that place home. This land use change, as the experts call it, is a major factor. Beyond the farm, other key drivers. While agriculture takes a lot of the blame, it's not the only reason our insect populations are dwindling. Our ever-expanding cities and industrial areas are also gobbling up natural habitats, leaving fewer places for insects to live and breed. And then there's climate change, that global thermostat that's going a bit haywire. Shifting seasons and more extreme weather events can really mess with insect life cycles, like causing bees to emerge before the flowers they rely on for food have even bloomed. The Insect Hall of Fame and the rest of the crowd. Bias in research. Interestingly, when scientists have been buzzing about insect decline, they've tended to focus on the rock stars of the insect world, bees and butterflies. These charismatic critters are often seen as the poster children for conservation, and let's be honest, they're pretty photogenic. It's like they're the celebrities of the insect awards, always getting the most attention. So, you want to be an insect hero? Simple tips for bug-friendly living. The good news in all this buggy drama is that we don't have to sit back and watch our insect friends disappear. There are actually a lot of simple things we can all do to help make our world a bit more insect-friendly. Conclusion: it's a bug's life. Let's help them live it. The case of the disappearing insects is a complex one, with a multitude of interconnected factors at play. While agriculture appears to be a major driver, it's clear that many of our human activities are contributing to this global decline. And while the focus has often been on the more glamorous members of the insect world like bees and butterflies, it's crucial to remember that the entire insect community is facing challenges. These tiny creatures are the unsung heroes of our ecosystems, playing vital roles in everything from pollination to decomposition. Their disappearance could have serious consequences for the natural world and even for us humans. The good news is that we all have the power to make a difference. By making small changes in our own backyards and supporting broader efforts towards more sustainable practices, we can help create a world where our six-legged friends can thrive. So, maybe it's time we all became honorary members of the Insect Appreciation Society and started giving a bug's life a little more thought. After all, it's their world and we're just living